Hello again, and like I said at the end of the last tutorial, today we will be setting up the first collectible in the game. I will teach you how to do blue gem. I'll also show you how to put it on an E number, so you could actually have multiple different meshes. But just to make sure we're carrying off from where we left off last time, we should still have a player that can run, sprint, jump, equip the hammer, and attack, which it seems like we do. So, first thing we're going to do is in our blueprints folder, I'm going to make a new folder, and it's going to be called Collectable. I'm going to create a new blueprint class, actor, and I'm going to call this Collectible. Sweet, so that's the first step done. This is going to be our blueprint class, and like I said, I will be making a blue gem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into our assets packs. I'm going to go to our models, and I'm going to try and find a gem, crystal gem 2 for the time being, and then back into our collectible blueprint. So back in, I'm going to add component, I'm going to add static mesh, and it's going to be crystal 2. So that's going to come in, and that looks pretty big, but just to check how big that actually is in the world is if we go to our blueprints, go into our collectible and drag that in, that's the size that it's going to be in the world. So it's not too big. If you want it to be a collectible, it's going to be relatively big. You can tweak around with the sizes yourselves. And I'm going to drag this and make it the root. I'm actually just going to call this static mesh, so that this will eventually become anything. It doesn't have to be the gem like we said. Now the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a component. I'm going to scroll down, and I want collision, and I'm going to get sphere collision, sphere, and I'm going to scale this up so it's a bit bigger. Ooh. So it fits around the whole of the mesh. Now once we've done that, we have a gem that can be placed in the world, just dragged and dropped in. It also has a sphere, and this is what will cause the overlap events, so that we'll be able to say, yes, we picked up this gem, fantastic. But just whilst we're in here, we're going to set this to custom, because we only want it to overlap the pawn, because otherwise other things in the world could overlap this and could pick it up. So compile, save, and just double check. When we drag it in the world, we have a gem. If we press play at the moment, nothing's going to happen, as you can see, because we've not set up the fact that we want to pick up this as a collectible. So where do we go from here? We're going to go into our event graph. Let's get rid of these. And on sphere, we're going to drag this in. No, we're not. We're not going to drag it in. We're going to right click, add event, and we're going to add event on begin overlap. So this means that when this sphere is overlapped, it's going to do the following results. And what we want it to do is we want it to calculate a number within Hammergirl BP, saying we've collected a gem. In order to do that, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to create a variable inside Hammergirl BP. So create variable, and I'm going to call this gem count, or gem amount. We'll do gem amount. And at the minute it's a bool. We're going to change it from being a bool over here to an integer. And we're going to compile, save. So that means now we can cast to our Hammergirl BP, and we can say what she's picked up, and we can add it to a number. So we're gonna right click and we're gonna create a custom event and gonna call it Collectable picked up. So in the Hammer Girl BP, at some point this is gonna fire, and we're gonna get an incremental float. Oh, we don't want a float, sorry, we want an incremental integer. So every time that this is fired, it's going to add 1 to gem amount. Okay? So that's as simple as that. And this, like I say, is just mean every time we walk into a gem, it's going to add 1 to our gem amount. So compile, save that in the Hammer Girl. We're going to go back to our collectible. So now, in order to get that, we are going to drag off here, and we're going to cast to Hammer Girl. This is so we can actually receive the collectible picked up. And then this is all we need to do. And then once we've picked it up, we need to destroy the actor. So this will destroy itself. So compile, save. And if we go to our test map and press play, when we walk over to it, it's going to destroy itself. But as you can see, we don't know if we picked up a gem or not. So if we go into our collectible, and from here, in between here, what we're going to do is we're going to print string, and we're going to, off the Hammer Girl, we're going to find out, get the gem amount, and we're going to print that string. So compile, save, go back to our test map, press play. We're going to walk over here, and you can see in the corner that says we've got 1. If I just Control B that, Control B finds whatever you want in the browser, and I drag in a couple more, and I press play. I'm going to go and walk over these, 1, 2, and 3. So it's just adding 1 each time. So that's very simple to show on the screen through a print string. Later on in tutorials, we will show you how to actually add that to a HUD element, so that the HUD will update. We'll have a nice little fancy picture of a gem with the number of gems that we've actually picked up. But in order to make our collectible blueprint a bit fancier, as you were, we're going to do a number of things. First of all, we're going to go back into our test map. I'm going to go into collectible. I'm going to right click, go to blueprints, and I'm going to make something called an enumeration. And this is going to be called collectible type. Space, no spaces. So this means that we can set up 2 different types of meshes that this blueprint could possibly spawn as. So I'm going to do gem, and I'm going to do a mushroom, because we went on about them a lot in our first presentation. So we've got our enum now. We've set that up. Sorry, just go back here. Collectible type. So into a collectible, we're going to go into variable. We're going to tick that, and we're going to try and find, and this is going to be called collectible type again. The type of mesh this is going to be the enum that we just set up, which we've called the same, so it's called collectible type. And what we're going to do is we're going to make that visible. So if we just do this, that means that in the world, we can say whether it's a gem or whether it's a mushroom. At the minute, that's not doing anything because we've not set up anything to do with it yet. But we're making progress. If we go back into the Hammer Girl blueprint, what we're going to do is, after the collectible has been picked up, we're going to add a new input, and this one is going to be called Collectible. Type. And then this is if we locate our collectible type again. And off this, if we drag off, and we want to switch on enum, isn't it? Sorry. Yeah, switch on enum collectible type. So as you can see, we have our two types of collectibles that we're going to set up. So we want, when the collectible is picked up, we want to fire this, and this basically says what have we picked up. And as you can see here, at the minute it's gem type, but we've added this little variable over here which we can now drag. Oh, must have bugged out. Okay, weird. So we've had to remake that because it's spit an error. But now back on track. So just to sum up what we've done, when the player overlaps the sphere in the blueprint, we're casting to the Hammer Girl. So we're going to the Hammer Girl and we're saying which collectible have we picked up. If we picked it up a gem, which we set in here, we will add 1 to the gem amount. If we wanted to make a mushroom amount, we'll go back to our variables, we'd add mushroom amount. Struggling to type apparently. Mushroom amount, and we'd do the same thing, but instead of adding to the gem amount now, you'd be adding to the mushroom amount. So that means that off the one blueprint you could have two different types of collectibles, and you'd have two different print strings of what you could possibly get. So as you can see here, this is just doing the gem, but if you wanted to do another print string and change the colours so you knew that this is a mushroom, you could come off your Hammer Girl, get mushroom amount, and would plug that in, and that would say how many mushrooms you've got or how many gems you've got. So if you go back into the world, we're going to press play. Pretty sure this, I set this to be a mushroom. Oh no, it's still a gem. So it's saying 2 gems, 0 mushrooms. If we were to, however, click this one, turn it to a mushroom, press play, it says that we've got a mushroom now and not a gem. Obviously, it doesn't look like a mushroom just yet, but we can fix that by going into our collectible, going into our construction script, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a random gate for every collectible type. This means that we'll be able to make the static mesh look like what we want it to look like, either a gem or a mushroom or a saw or a witch's pot, witch's cauldron if you wanted to. But in order to do that, we need to drag off here, get our collectible type, switch on, sorry, I've not got this first. Get switch. So construction. What we're saying here is, at the beginning of the game, if we've set that tick box to gem, do this. If we've set that tick box to mushroom, do this. And we're just going to set up, like I say, some very simple multi-gates. We're going to click is random, and we're going to click loop. That means that it will have a random output. And because we've got the option of 5 gems, if I just go to our models, go back to our crystals, sorry, crystals, not gems, I'm going to get our static mesh, and I'm going to drag off it, and I'm going to set static mesh. Oh, no, not that one. Oh. Set static mesh. Okay. So this will mean that we're going to change the appearance on random of the gem, and we'll do that by getting them in here. So the first one's going to be crystal 1, drop that in here. You do that by simply clicking it and then going back into Collectible and just clicking this little arrow here. Make sure that for every single one the target is set, and then we need 5 of these. Doop, doop, doop. And then make sure I attach the rest of the crystals, the third crystal into here, fourth crystal into there, and finally the 5th crystal into there. So if we have said that this collectible type variable, this one here that we've made visible, if this is set to gem, it's going to randomly spawn an appearance of those 5 different gems. But obviously we've got a mushroom there, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to grab this multi-gate, we're going to drag off the mushroom, but instead of setting it to gems this time, we're still going to use this static mesh. As I said in the last tutorial, I'm using Control W here just to duplicate things to speed up the process. Out 1, out 2, out 3. If you ever get too many of these pins, if you right click, you can remove a pin. So I'll just remove these pins. I think there's only 3 mushrooms. Find the mushrooms in our content browser. Oh, there's 4. Never mind, we'll just use 3. And I'm simply going to attach these like we did with the gems. And now we have 2 different collectible types in the one blueprint. Just give these a bit of a quick comment box. Tidy that up in a second. Compile, save. So, test map. As you can see, this one that we set to mushroom earlier has already changed to a mushroom. So if you go back and forward, they'll change to a different mushroom or a different gem each time, and they will in turn go into our hammer girl and say either a gem or a mushroom. So that is pretty much the collectible setup, but what we're going to do is to make the gem a bit more attractive and a bit more appealing. We're going to get it so that on event begin play, the gem is just going to constantly rotate 360 degrees. So we're going to events begin play. So yeah, off event begin play, we're going to get our collectible, static mesh, sorry, and we're going to set world rotation. So in order to make it spin 360 degrees, what we're going to do is we're going to make a timeline. Add a timeline. We're going to call it spinning. And we're going to plug this into play. But in order for it actually to spin, we're going to have to actually add a timeline. So in order to go into the timeline, if you double click it, you'll open up a new, as you can see, it says spinning template here. And what we need is a flow track. And I'm going to call this spinning again. Spinning 360. And over 5 seconds, it's going to go from 0 to 360. In order to add a pointer on the timeline, if you shift and click at any point, you'll add a new point. You can press delete to delete them. So we're going to go from 0, so if I go 0 to 0 to time 5 seconds, 5 seconds, and the value is going to be 360. I'm going to press enter, compile, save, close that. So when this timeline first fires, it's going to update the world rotation of the static mesh, but we only want it to affect one of the axes. The axis we want it to affect is the Z. So if we drag off here and we make rotator, that will break those 3 values for us, and that means we can now add a float to a float. So we're going to go from spinning 360 to our Z, and that should mean that when we press play, they are spinning 360 degrees. And it just makes them a little bit more attractive. But as you saw there, if I just show you again, once it reaches its end, they've stopped spinning. So what we're going to do is when the timeline is finished, we're going to plug itself back into itself. In order to do that, I'm just going to do a delay. We're not going to use it, but if you double click on a line, you add a point. So now I'm going to delete this delay. I'm going to go from here, and it goes back into play from start. So this is just going to repeat. So in case you didn't see that, I'm just going to Alt tab that and get rid of this. Alt tab, delete that. So in order to connect it from there to there, because I can't click it there, I'm just going to add a delay, double click the line, delete the delay, and then plug this into play from start, make a nice loop, compile, save, and play. So now they should constantly spin. And as you can see, the values are still going up, and later on in another tutorial we will be showing you how to add those to a bit of a more fancy HUD. Just to keep everything clean like normal, I'm just going to comment things before I finish. This is going to be called Collectible Count, because we can have multiple collectibles now. We could have keys, we could have mushrooms, gems, trees, and this is in itself own self-contained blueprint, so I'm not too fussed about commenting this at the moment. It's quite tidy anyway. But yeah, so we have made a successful blueprint that we can change the type of in our editor window. I hope you've managed to follow that, and thank you very much again, and I'll see you in tutorial 3. Bye.